So in 2022, I actually quit my job as a principal in New York City schools. And I posted an open letter. It was literally, I think I want to say it was like about a day or two, if not the day after, when it was official that my time as a New York City principal had come to an end. And I took the time to kind of share out my feelings, what led to that moment. And there was so much that I just poured out during that time frame. And coming out of the pandemic, there has been, I mean, I had to, one of my sons passed away. There was so much going on than just home life and just, it was just chaotic for me. And and the universe presented an opportunity for me to do things a bit differently. So I took it and I resigned. And then that letter that I posted on LinkedIn went viral. You know, um, I want to say roughly about over 10,000 reads, and for me that's a lot because I'm thinking about 10,000 people, of whom are primarily educators, read that letter. And if you're interested in reading it, if you go on LinkedIn, or maybe even probably even if you just Google it, it was called "My Resignation from Being a NYC Principal." And it's weird because I didn't do it for clout. I didn't do it because I was trying to get attention. I posted that letter because I needed a release. I'm one of those people like when I'm in a space where I am either out of whack or out of balance, I need to do something to get myself back on track or something to kind of like nudge me. And for example, this whole notion of podcasting and creating content really started during the pandemic. Podcasting did. I was going through some serious cabin fever, locked up in a one bedroom co op in Mount Vernon with a wife, a, a newborn child, and then a toddler. And the way my brain works, I just needed something to keep my brain, engaged. And with the pandemic, being stuck in the house, there wasn't much that I could do, and I just watched live content on YouTube. And the podcast thing kind of came up, and I was like, I can do that. I can podcast. So I created a podcast. Actually, I didn't really create a podcast. I just kind of started to like play with it and built out this laptop and a mic, and it became much more. So now, fast forward, the pandemic is, I guess, over, but not really. We're in this back to school space, and so much has transpired, things that I'm still not comfortable talking about, feelings that I went through, experiences with my school community and the district I was in, and all these different things, and my commute from Westchester County to Brooklyn. And I mean, I'm talking about with no traffic was about an hour. Going home, which meant I had to leave home super early. So there were days where, honestly, I would leave the building like I would leave home 6 o'clock in the morning, just to get there by 7, then leave at a reasonable time because again, it's a high school, so it's all these things happening. By the time I left the house, I left school, it would probably take some time. Listen, depending on what was going on my way from Brooklyn through Queens to through the Bronx to Westchester, it could take anywhere from I would say an hour and a half to sometimes 4 hours sitting in traffic to get home. Then compounded with the work of trying to move a school forward after coming out of a pandemic and the struggles the kids were going through, we acclimating to a school building, and then dealing with the losses that happened in the pandemic, and the loss of one of my students before the school year started, all these different things, and then struggles within the staff and within my administration. Even though listen, There were some extreme successes when I left, but also I felt like a punch drunk heavyweight boxer who'd gone through so many battles. And at that point in time, I decided, you know what? I'm done. I need to do something else. Being a principal is not for me anymore. So an opportunity came up. I took that opportunity, and I thought in that moment in time I was doing the best thing for me as just a human being. And not thought, I believed it. I was like, this is the best thing for me, for my family. So I resigned. But then I needed something to kind of put a mark on it. So I wrote that open letter, my resignation from being an NYC principal. And I thought to myself, this nobody's going to read this. You know what I'm saying? This is just something I'm posting. But I posted it, and a lot of you read it. A lot of you became familiar who I was because of that post. Some people actually that I know personally text me, called me like, "Are you okay?" And number two, some people were like, "Are you crazy?" Like you're pretty much kind of like putting a nail in your coffin. Like no one's ever going to hire you as a leader again. You just kind of like outed what we do, and I was like, I didn't out anything. I just spoke about what I was going through, and I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the letter right now, and it's funny because I I think this is the first time I'm actually looking at it or even reading it. I know for a fact I've never read it. I wrote it and I never went back to read it. So I'm sitting here looking at this letter. I'm like, wow, you know, it starts off saying, after 17 years as a public school educator, I have 17 days until my last day as a principal and public servant. I started this journey in 2004, looking for a job as a teacher in Los Angeles in the midst of a hiring freeze. I had turned my eyes eastward to New York City and the city, and the New York City Teaching Fellows Program. In 2005, I started on what would be a fruitful career. And over the course of 17 years, I worked in 6 schools in 2 states in grades pre-K through 12. I started a high school dean, a special education teacher, a special education science teacher. From there, I worked my way to head departments, lead teams, to be an assistant principal and the principal of 2 New York City schools. I've loved every moment of my time in classrooms, hallways, cafeterias, nooks, and crannies of spaces occupied by students, teachers, staff, and family. I'll be lying if I stated that there were never moments that I contemplated quitting. It's crazy because to read my words, right? Or to read your words and be like, whoa, what was I thinking? What was because again, I'll be honest with you, I barely remember writing these words. Um, but I wrote them. As I'm reading it, the feelings are coming back of a kind of being, resurrected. So I have tendered my resignation. In a little over 2 weeks, I will no longer be an employee of the New York City Department of Education. After 17 years in the trenches of urban education, my decision wasn't one made lightly, but there's a toll that many educators, especially those in leadership roles, such as principals, pay. The toll is blended, is a blending of loss of time with one's family or the prospect of having one while fighting for families, as well as the stress of meeting unrealistic expectations to ensure that all children meet identical benchmarks, including the red tape of endless compliance that delays and the trips up progress. My heart is beating. My heart is beating right now reading this. Man, I guess I went in. Wow. It's not my intention to come off cynical because I'm not. I believe in the work that all educators do, regardless of title or position, but especially the principal. This is often thankless work with most people looking in from outside, never truly understanding all that is sacrificed to keep schools running effectively. This is not a 9 to 5, but rather a 24/7 commitment. Most educators are effective for decades, while others wear down and settle into a routine of being status quo. Damn. Um, I'm not quitting, but rather I'm stepping aside for the cadre of aspiring school leaders to take charge, as once I was allowed to do. I'm okay with that, as my decision allows me the time to continue to grow, explore other ways to support educators and schools. After 17 years as a public school educator, I have 17 days until my last day as principal and public servant. I'm doing so with peace of mind and a content soul. I'm just jumping around this letter, this post. Wow. So I was away for a couple of months working in a space where I thought was going to be the most ideal place for me to continue my work. And it wasn't. But my first thought when I realized that wasn't the space for me, my first thought was reluctantly the school building. But I said reluctantly because this letter, I was like, I wrote this letter that over 10,000 people read, and they're gonna think I'm a phony. And I'm sorry, that was the first thing that came to mind. They're gonna think I'm a phony, that I just did it for clout, which again, I didn't. I did it because I needed to get the heck out. And now, months after I've returned, because I left, I think this post was in September, I wanna say, either late August or September. But May 1st, I came back. Opportunity came up. It wasn't even an opportunity. The universe placed this thing in front of me, and when I saw this thing, I knew without a doubt in my mind that yes, that is what I am meant to do right now in this season, and that thing was taking over this school. You know, this school that was the butt of jokes. The school that was, at least we're not them. The school where everyone from school safety officers to teachers and administrators that I came across who were familiar with the school who told me, whoa, why would you do that? Oh, wow, they're crazy. And when I say crazy, they were talking about the children were crazy. That was, it's all fights and it was all chaos and all these different things. The kind of things that you would think if you heard, you would say, I don't know if I want to take that school. I don't know if it's the right space for me. But that's not what I'm going to say. Because my two previous schools, I took based on a feeling that I can make a difference in that space. But none of those two previous schools were like this one because things were so low that honestly it couldn't get any worse. I mean, I guess it could, but I was just like, okay. But also, I gotta say this: the things that made me realize that where I was after I had left was the wrong place for me were things that I saw from the beginning. You know, the talk about supporting children and school communities that wasn't the case. That made me ask, like, wait a minute, what is really going on here? The things that caused me to have conversations, you know, secretly about this is how you approach this work, not the way this is not the way they're saying it. Because the one thing that I could say was that in this particular space, this company, I was the one who was freshest off of the space of school leadership and school. as an educator in that space through the pandemic, through everything else. So what ended up happening was I I just saw like the ugly of people and culture that looked at schools salivating as just money and not the humanity and the potential and the lives and what could happen, what needs to happen next for these communities to thrive. Because we all know that our children are our future. Through our struggles, we pour into our children, hoping for them to be the answer to to our current problems. So when I was in a space where the conversations were really about just dollars, were just about dollars, I was like, okay. I thought I was walking to a different place where I can now support schools and children and communities, but that was not the purpose. So when I was presented with a school that was at its lowest point, I said yes. When I looked at the data, and even though the data said like this is an impossibility, I still said yes. May 1st was my first day in this school, MS 318. I'm sorry. Ooh. MS 318 was my first middle school. May 1st was my first day here at MS 224. And I'll tell you this, it is the best decision I ever made. Not because I came in here like Superman with a cape and I did perform all those miracles. I came into a space that had heart, the staff, the kids, the parents. There was heart here. It was real people, real problems, real issues, but also a real want and need to succeed, to do things differently. And it's funny that I've been here now for, what is it, 8 months and 19 days. And I don't think I've respected I've respected, I have a lot of educators I respect and I deeply respect. And if I was to say my top 50, a whole lot of them will come from this school here, and I've only known them for 8 months because there is a passion and a love for the work, a passion and a love for the children, and a passion and love for each other. I walked away from a school where I was just, from high school principalship, where I was devastated by the loss of one of my students. And then I come here, and the same thing happens. But not only does the same thing happen, we lose a student. We also lost a staff member. Then not only that, we also lost another member of the community who was serving the community as a teaching artist. All three happened within the span of literally, I want to say about 6 weeks. But this time, maybe, and I would say this: those of you who are non-religious, don't want to hear about God, you close your ears, you can walk, you can turn it off. But I felt like God said, "Listen, I put you through what you went through to be ready for this space and what's coming next." And I couldn't be happier with the work that I'm doing here, the work that we're doing here, and the 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 energy, the love that's happening, and the movement, the progress, the growth that I'm seeing in my students, in my teachers, even in myself. In my last two videos ago, I talked about fear. Here, I realized that in my previous iteration and work as a principal, fear was always the accent, the flavor, the 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 gentle rumbling beneath my feet. So if I was going to make a decision, I'll feel that rumble. I'm like, oh, I gotta be careful here. Oh, no, 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 I don't want to do that. I don't want to get too much attention. Oh, no, 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 I don't want to upset people. But since being here, and I think having the time to reflect on the past, then, then the time in this particular company, then the months afterwards, meditating and asking myself, what is it that I want to do? And I'll tell you, the months after the the end of that time with this company, and then the I think it was I want to say it was about 3 months, and until me accepting this position here at the school, I questioned myself, and I was like, am I even as good as I think I am? Was I being was I being arrogant in both spaces? I went through a lot of self doubt, a lot of questioning of who I was and who I am as a leader. And what ended up happening was this. One day I got clarity, and that clarity was, Uche, this is what you were made to do. You're a teacher. Teach. But not only are you a teacher, you're a leader of teachers. So lead and teach. You have all these years of experiences, 6 schools under your belt, different states, different leaders, and you've been successful in all those spaces. You've done what I've asked you to do in these spaces. And then it was like, you know what? Okay. It might look to some people like I was walking back into education with my tail between my legs because I had failed at this other space, but it wasn't that. I just took a vacation. I didn't realize I was taking a vacation. I took a vacation to let my body heal, my emotions heal, my mind heal, and to let my brain reset. And I'll tell you this: since I've been back, there is no fear. What I do is in the service of not just the children, but of the community. Because now I know the work that we're doing is community building. We're not just teaching kids so they can pass state tests and then go to high school and then go to college and that's it. No, we're saying if we do this work the right way, our children are being prepared to take over, to take charge as thinkers, as readers, as speakers of the truth, with the full confidence to say, I am here to participate in my community for the betterment of all in my community. And for me, that is what the work is now. So everything we do here is with a very clear understanding that we have children who need us, who need me. I have teachers who need us, who need me. I have administrators and aspiring leaders who need us and need me. I have colleagues who need us and need me. And the reason I keep saying that need me, I was always us, and never centered on myself to say, Uche, what do you bring to the table? What is the value that 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 is the foundation of who you are? I didn't know that. I just knew that in these other spaces I did good work. In some cases I did great work. But now, in this space, in this world that I'm in right now, I 100% take full responsibility for what I do on a daily basis with a very clear understanding that what I do on a daily basis has great impact. And I don't know why I didn't see that before. People would tell me, but I didn't see it. It might just be also age. Maybe I'm just older now. Maybe I need that time away from my brain, my body to say, to do that click, click, and say, now this is who you are. The best thing I ever did was this whole experience with walking away and then the letter and everything else. But however, that was me. And what I did was very dangerous because if the universe or God or whatever you want to call that driving force hadn't forced me to pivot and pivot back, I probably would have been a, yes sir, yes ma'am, whatever you need me to do, and still be at that company, you know, selling snake oil to my colleagues. But instead, I was pivot back to my center again. But this time, I'm not just on my center. My my wheels are set in the track, and I know exactly where I'm going. There's no rumbling, there's no shaking. I know exactly what I'm going. I know what I'm doing, and again, this is something that I'm so grateful for. Wow, reading that letter, just going looking at this letter is powerful. That last line, I'm not quitting, but rather I am stepping aside for the cadre of aspiring school leaders to take charge, as once I was allowed to do. Part of why I'm making this video right now is because I also know we are in a season that has kind of expanded itself from when I left till now, where a lot of leaders are saying, this is too much, I'm tired, I need to go. And if that's what's right for you, that's what's right for you. But there's also a lot of other leaders out there who are struggling because the value of the work itself is so fleeting, or sometimes you can't even put your finger on it, so you don't know why you're doing what you're doing and why you take the abuse you're taking, and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I want to talk to you because one thing I would say is this: if you truly love this work as I do, as even as I did, I'm going to say, don't quit. People might say you're a hypocrite, but you did. Yeah, but I did, but then I did, but I also came to the realization quickly. It wasn't like it was years down the road. It was months where I was like, "Whoa, hold up." And it's funny because part of me quitting had to do with protecting the profession as well, because I thought I wasn't good enough, but the thing was I was. And the problem was no one was talking to me about, and I wasn't confiding in anyone about what I was going through. That was the biggest mistake I made. I didn't talk to anybody. I was just in my own space, going through my own head, and made a decision. But thank God the universe, God, the divine force said, Uche, come on now. This is what you were built for. And a lot of us are built for this. And it's funny, but in my closing, I said I'm going to step aside for the cadre of aspiring school leaders. But that cadre need us as well to guide them and push them and help them not make the same mistakes that we've made as school leaders. So if we leave and say, oh, hands up, I'm done, then guess what's happening? We have a whole other generation coming in without the benefit of that experience. I'll tell you right now, like I'm loving my school right now. I'm loving every moment. The teachers, the kids, the fact that we've gone from being the school that people kind of like laughed at to being the school people are like, what's going on there? But none of it has been a mistake. Everything's been curated from day one. Literally everything's been curated from day one. Every decision, every movement has been curated, has been thoroughly thought out. And not just by me, by a team. It's like I brought together my soldiers, those who were here. I was like, listen, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this together. I don't make decisions independently. I will always make sure that the right people are in the room when I'm making decisions, because I also want to make sure that I am not making decisions based on just my feelings, but I'm making decisions based on what's in the best interest of the whole entire community. So now you're thinking, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And I'll say this, not just the principal, not just APs, teachers too. And I'm begging you, if you in your core truly love this profession and you're like, I love what I do, maybe right now I'm experiencing something that's making that love wane, the thing I'm going to say to you is ask yourself, are you in the right place? Are you in the right place physically? Are you in the right school, community, city, state, whatever the case may be? Are you in the right place spiritually? Because I think also that time away gave me a chance to kind of like center myself spiritually to to understand, is this my purpose? Because I've been telling people for years that if you want to work in education as a teacher or educator, whatever role it is, this is not a job. This is a life's work because you never reach the moment where you're like, oh my God, I am the best at what I do. Because it's constant challenges. There's going to be challenges in kids. There's going to be challenges in teachers. There's going to be challenges with parents. There's going to be challenges in the community. There's always a challenge that is never identical to the previous challenge. Never. So it's not a job where you can just say, I'm going to take this widget or this square, put it into the square peg or whatever, however you say it. And every day I know that it's always going to be an ounce of burger meat. Sorry about that. Um, a call came in as I was doing my podcast. I'm recording straight from my phone camera, so I'm going live from my phone. So I apologize for that. But I was saying, it's not a job where you can say this patty and this bun and whatever, where everything's measured out equally every single time. No, every piece of what you do is going to shift every time. Every conversation never the same. Every tear is never for the same reason. Every success or failure in education in the school, but it's never the same. So you're constantly working, and sometimes you might feel you're not even getting better. But the one thing I would say is this: 17 years, 6 schools, from a dean to a education science teacher to an assistant principal, middle school, high school, elementary school, middle school principal, high school principal, now middle school principal again. All these spaces, I've become the embodiment of all these experiences. And secretly, my greatest joy in this work is supporting aspiring leaders. Right now on my team, I have 2 amazing academic deans who I'm pouring into and I'm hoping, I'm not hoping, no, we're working towards them becoming school leaders. I have other aspiring leaders who are saying, whoa, I never thought, or no one ever told me that potentially I can, maybe be an assistant principal or be a principal. I'm like, and I'm pointing to them as well. Because the thing too is this: for me to impact more children, more communities, I have to pour into aspiring leaders. Because me by myself as a principal, maybe I impact 1,000 kids. But now if I impact 10 principals who could do 1,000 kids each, that's 10,000 children. Now, if I train them as well to do the same thing, you see how the multiplicity of impact fans out. And I'll tell you this unapologetically, as a black man in America, as an African born immigrant to this country, it's not lost on me the fact that I'm where I am. I was born in a dirt road in sub-Saharan Africa, literally in the desert. The Sahara Desert actually flowed into where I was born in Zaria, Kaduna, in Nigeria. There is no reason at my birth that anyone could have seen where I'm at right now, sitting here speaking to you. So, with that being said, I have to believe that what I do is not just a job, it is a work. And it's a work that will impact thousands and thousands of people if I do it right. So, those of you who are thinking about quitting, ask yourself, is this your job or is this your work? If this is your work, find the space that you need to talk it out, to shed, you know, whatever it is that's pulling you down. But more so than anything else, find a way to become fearless. If this is what you do, this is who you are, I'll tell you this: a lot of people who are tired and who want to walk away is because they don't have the space to speak up and say, "Hey, this is not right." Because again, the fear is that if I say the wrong thing to the wrong person, or I might get canceled, or I might upset my boss, and I can't. No, no. Listen, I don't want to be arrogant, but I want a principal like me for my daughter and son. Someone who's unapologetic and says, listen, I'm going to do everything I can do to pour into you and make sure you have everything you need to be successful. That is the work, not the job. And the great thing about work, titles don't matter because, again, you're doing work. Job requires titles. Then people live off the titles and they get so married to the titles and they're so nervous because they don't want to lose their title. Like, no, work means this is what I do, regardless of the title, regardless of where I'm at. This is the work. This is what I was created to do. Okay. I want to thank you. If you read my letter on LinkedIn, if it touched you, if you were one of the hundreds, actually pushing like thousands of people who reached out and said, "Hey, are you okay? God bless you," and poured it into me, because again, I think that this letter, now that I think about it, was probably low key the reason that even came back, because I was like, whoa, I impacted people off of a letter. But what can I do, or what can I continue to do when it comes to impacting children and teachers and aspiring leaders and my colleagues and parents and community, the city, the state, by doing my work? If you're watching this and you know your time is up, then your time is up. If you're watching this and you don't know if your time is up, you're just going through it, talk to somebody. Write it out. Go into your cave, cry it out, think it out. Because the reality is, we need strong, amazing school leaders, visionaries. And I'm going to stop saying school leaders. We need strong, mission oriented visionaries to continue to lead our schools, to continue to be in our school spaces, because that's what we need across the world to make sure that we are building out the next generation the right way so they can hopefully help to correct the mistakes that our generation and previous generations have made. So, with that being said, thank you so much. And until next time, Suche Chuku and Joku, the Sneaker Principal. Be well.